Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Welcome back to the first, I believe, let me check the date. Yeah, first transfer carnage of the season. Um, the January window has not been open long, but here we are, ready and willing to chat to you all things transfers and Liverpool. And of course, I have a panel. And as you can see, I have a new face on my Nat channel, and I'm absolutely honored to have a new face. I like new faces, new opinions, fresh ideas, different, not the same, different perspective. And I have got, for me, one of the best commentators in the Serie A game, journalist, call it what you want, analyst, pundit. I have Nema from It is short for Italian Foot Pod. Ita Foot Pod. Nema, thank you very much for joining us today. Hope you're doing very well.
It's good to be with you guys. Yeah, I'm a football journalist. I've been covering Italian football for 12 years as an independent journalist on various platforms. And yeah, it's the Italian Football Podcast, and that's the handle right there, Ita Football.
I have put Nema's the podcast in the description, guys. It's also pinned in the chat, his first message. Make sure you go over, like, subscribe. If you are a lover of Serie A like I am, I was much more of a lover, but I'm growing to love it again. I'm falling back in love with Serie A. How can you stay out of love with Serie A? You can't. So if you are, make sure you go and check him out on Twitter. It's Nema Tafrud on Twitter, and Itafotpod is his podcast name as well. And on YouTube, make sure you're liking, subscribing, and following his content for Serie A. And of course, I've got Bence returning. Bence, if you don't know, where have you been? Bence is an absolute box of knowledge, treasure chest of knowledge, and I'm always happy to have him on and talk football. Bence, how you been?
Yeah, all good. I've been very well. Nice to be back on.
Excellent. People, all we ask, as always, is house rules. When you come in, just like the stream. That's all we ask for. That's all we don't. House rules are, we don't ask you to take off your shoes. You know what I mean? Or take off your jacket or anything like that. Just hit the like button. That's all our rules are. And we will get into all things that everybody wants to speak about. Oh gosh, we've got it. This is a smokescreen tactic by FSG. This is absolute cinema. Oh God, look, the questions are already flying in. We signed him yet, or is he going to Chelsea? I think everyone's got their own opinions. In fact, I'll start with you, Ben. What is it with this notion of January transfer windows that things are very awkward and can't be done, and transfers, only major transfers happen in the summer? Where did this start from? Where did this come from? Because looking back at Liverpool's history of January transfers, we have had some stunning coups in January, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't buy into that notion at all. I mean, if we're looking at even the Torres drama, I think that's where it all started with when he went to Chelsea, and then Carroll and Suarez came in that January window. But even more recently, I mean, Cody Hakpo, he was a January transfer. Luis Diaz was also a January transfer. It feels like things can move and things can happen, and I think usually it's the case of a player becoming available. With the case of Kvaratskhelia, it seems like he is available. And then Liverpool sort of thinking, okay, we've planned for a move for him in the summer, but now PSG are interested, Man United, Chelsea, Newcastle, all these options, they could try to sign him as well. So now we need to act and try to get him as well, because this is a player Liverpool really like. I know it's a position where Liverpool have a lot of options at the moment, but I think there is still a question mark over Luis Diaz's future. Obviously, he's yet to sign a contract extension. I have my question marks over how suited he is to the left wing position under Arne Slot. There's a reason why he's playing as a forward, and it's not just because Darwiun Nunez isn't very well suited to that forward role as well under Arne Slot. Kvaratskhelia for me is a huge upgrade. He's a game-changing player for Liverpool, and I think it kind of makes sense that if he is available in the market, if he is there for Liverpool, for the price that's quoted as well, I think 80 million euros, that's a very fair transfer fee. I would say in today's market, it's about 67 million pounds. That's not a bad deal for a player of his quality, for someone who, over the last 2 seasons anyway, absolutely transformed that Napoli side, particularly in his debut season when they won the Scudetto.
Yeah, look, as Gian says, evening lads, smash up the likes. Let's hope FSG are serious. Nema, coming to you again, welcome. And so give us a bit of background into sort of Serie A and your love affair with Italian football. Where did it start from, and has it continued? And has it been on the wane like it has been, or no? Are you just literally in love with Serie A?
No, my love for Serie A will always endure for as long as I'm covering football. It is the football it is my home when it comes to football, and has always been the football where I feel at home, even though I'm not of Italian descent. But it started when I was, well, I would say when I was 7, 8 years old, 88, 89, Inter Milan's record-breaking season when they win the Scudetto under Giovanni Trapattoni, who'd arrived at Inter after winning everything, literally everything with Juve. He comes to Inter, and Inter hadn't won for most of the 80s. They sign Breme, they sign Matteus, and they dethrone Maradona's Napoli against Maradona at the San Siro, with Matteo scoring the winning goal. That side with Zenga in goal, Berti, Bergomi, Ferri, Mandorlini, Serena. I mean, it was just unbelievable. That was the first game I saw on TV. I was at my aunt's house. She was married to a German man at the time. He's no longer with us, unfortunately. And we were watching. That was the first game I saw of Italian football on TV on a satellite dish. And I was completely blown away. And then, of course, so I used to use my weekly pocket allowance as a child to buy, back then, old newspapers, Gazzetta dello Sport. I couldn't read, but I used to pretend that I could, look at the pictures and my goal one day.
I still do that.
Yeah, no, and that was my dream, to one day go to the San Siro, and my own journey became far more than that. I founded sempreinter.com in February 2012. We became pretty quickly the biggest Inter Milan news site in English in the world. I've been covering Inter Milan for 13 years, and Italian football. I branched out. I've worked for Gianluca Di Marzio on his English page back in the day, covering transfers. I've done freelance work doing interviews and transfers for Goal.com, for Football Italia, and many other outlets. And nowadays, when asked, it's funny you mentioned, because last summer I was actually on Talk Sport talking about Chiesa to Liverpool. So I do things like that, a lot of freelance work, BBC, and so on and so forth. So yeah, that's what I do. That is my, and of course the Italian Football Podcast, which I started with Carlo Garganese about 3-4 years ago, covering Italian football our way. We actually had Mark Lawrenson on, your Liverpool legend, not too long ago, interviewed him. So we tried to do cover Italian football from all aspects and angles, the past, the present, the future, the problems, the bad, the good, the ugly. And of course, from everything from punditry to analysis to exclusive interviews with former players, current players, presidents, and so on. We had Materazzi on. Recently we had Udinese's Giacabbiolo on. I mean, so we try to do as much as possible to cover the Serie A and Italian football the best way that the way we want to do it.
Amazing. I guess we're going to start off with, and we're going to work our way through the couple of names that have been linked and the stories. And you mentioned Chiesa. You covered the Chiesa story, and Benz was talking about sort of doubts with the Liverpool attack. Like, we seem to be very well stocked. I say very well stocked. We have 4 centre backs. We have 4 fullbacks. We have 4 midfielders, I'd say, that are in favour. But the people talk about our forwards being very stacked. Numbers-wise, we are. But and I'm going to get Benz's thoughts on the forwards, but I want to ask you about a particular one that, again, was seen as an opportunistic buy. Chiesa in the summer. Nema, when this link was first sort of formed and it was seen to be going to Liverpool, what was your thoughts at the time? Then it happens. 6 months later, is it fair to say, about 4 or 5 months later, we find him in the position he is, injured, unfit, not ready to play a Premier League, not ready to start a Premier League game of football. what is your thoughts on the Chiesa situation then and now kind of thing? Where are you with that?
Look, when Federico Chiesa first came onto the scene at Fiorentina, for me, I fell in love. For me, he was a player who
I fell in love with Chiesa.
I felt like he is, for me, was the hope of Italy's future. He was Italy's future in attack. He's his talent, raw talent, just ability had it been, treated well, and had he not been injured, he would have been up there with the Ballon d'Or discussions, because his talent is that good. But the problem, of course, was that move to Juve at the time of when he made that move. And then, of course, that injury, the ACL, which destroyed him, because he's a wide player. He relies a lot on his explosiveness. He's lost a yard of pace. And then, of course, Allegri came in, and Allegri wanted to play him as a second striker. And I think that would have saved his career. But Chiesa didn't agree. And so since then, it's been a very slow decline, and Juventus had no choice but to take a little bit of a loss on him in terms of capital gains last summer. He didn't cost Liverpool too much. It was a gamble. It was a gamble, but it wasn't a gamble that set Liverpool back too much. And they gambled, and the gamble didn't pay off, which was kind of what I expected at the time, and many of us did, although we hoped for the best, because Federico Chiesa, at his best, is a fantastic player, if not world-class player. But I don't see him ever becoming a world-class player playing wide, as he's so adamant and hell-bent on doing. I think Allegri was absolutely right. He should have played him. He should have understood to adapt his game to the new reality post ACL and played as a second striker. But he doesn't want to do that. And as long as that's true, well, it is what it is.
Benz, the Chiesa stuff, I remember we done a show, and we were excited, and we thought it's a low risk, high reward type signing. As Nema says, there was not much sort of money's involved. Where are you now with him? And sort of listening to Slot speak about him, I'm hoping and assuming he starts tomorrow in the FA Cup. Otherwise, there's serious issues. Is there a future for him? Basically, it's 3-4 months to the end of the season to save his Liverpool career, dare I say, before it even started. I mean, Nema says, and obviously Nema's seen much more of him recently than me, and he says that his acceleration, he did lose acceleration, he did lose that explosiveness. If he's going to play wide in a Premier League for Liverpool, he definitely needs that, right? What's your thoughts on the Chiesa situation?
Yeah, I mean, obviously he did lose some acceleration, but I still think he's a pretty fast player, like fast enough for the Premier League. I think he was still recording sort of top speeds of 36 or 37 kilometers per hour after his ACL injury. So that's still not, I mean, it's not as fast as he was prior to the injury, because he was one of the fastest players, I think, in the world.
He was electric. He was electric, yeah.
Obviously, he hasn't got that speed anymore, but I still think he's fast enough in comparison to the likes of Cody Gakpo or maybe Luis Diaz or even Mohamed Salah, who isn't necessarily as electric as he was. I mean, he's 32 years old, so he has lost a bit of touch, but he's refined his game in some other ways. So I think, but for me, I like to hope. I think there's still hope for him to sort of turn his Liverpool career around. It's just been such a mess of a situation, the way he came in. I think the way Juventus handled him was a bit of a mess, really, because he came in with a massive disadvantage, not being involved in pre-season with Juventus, sort of training individually. After he got a bit of momentum at the Euros as well, and obviously had a relatively okay season with Juventus to come in, miss that pre-season, that put him back weeks and weeks, and then obviously you got the injury stuff and everything else, and he's lost a lot of months because of missing that preseason, and then picking up a couple of niggles here and there, but I like to think Liverpool are sort of managing him carefully, and like you mentioned, tomorrow is a great opportunity for him to sort of make a mark again, because the flashes when we did see him, and it's been very brief flashes, but that League Cup game against West Ham, there were some promising moments there. He got an assist. He came on, and no, I mean he started that game and he went off. But during that time when he was on the pitch, he made an impact. He was lively, and we could see like a sort of vision for him there. You know, like this could actually work. Like he's got potential in this team. It's just been so very rare and fleeting because of the injuries and because of him trying to get back to sort of match fitness. I guess my question is, the big question is, does Arne Slot actually think he suits this system, he fits into this system? Because there's one question.
Well, this is what I was going to say.
Of him being fit enough, but there's the other question. Does Arne Slot actually rate him? Because it seems like Arne Slot doesn't really like to rotate. He's got a set sort of 15, 16 players that he likes to use. And the rest he uses just because of an emergency, or if he's really, really forced to rotate because it's a League Cup game or FA Cup game or a Champions League game that has no relevance to Liverpool. So I think that's my question mark there.
I was going to ask Nema, you mentioned something about Allegri wanted to play him in a different role, and I wanted your thoughts. Could that be a saving grace for him at Liverpool? Because we've seen how Slot has tried to convert or seemingly convert Diaz from a wider position to a central role. There is murmurings that he may be looking to do the same with Chiesa, especially if Salah extends and Salah plays every single game. You just don't see a future for Chiesa if that's the case. Do you think he's got the capabilities and the abilities to play centrally or as a floating role? Like similarly, like basically we played Mane under Klopp, and then now more recently Luis Diaz under Slot.
I don't think he can play as a false nine, as a three-man attack, as a lone man. No, I think what Allegri tried to do, and Allegri was right when Allegri played the 3-5-2 against, especially the game against Chelsea that they beat Chelsea at home. That's when he said, he was born to play as a striker, because even this was after the ACL. He needs to play next to another man that he can play off of. I don't see him being another Mane, Firmino kind of thing you had going on there with the three of them kind of fluidly. Maybe it could work, but I don't see him as a false number 9 at all. I think Allegri was spot on that if Chiesa wants to have a top level career, and by top level career I mean start at the biggest clubs in the world and we compete as a starter for these trophies, then he needs to play somewhere where he is one of the two and more of a fluid second striker to a big number 9 that he can play off of. That's what I think, and that's what Allegri said, and I'm fully in agreement with that man, because I think he's when you can criticize him for many things, but he understands football and he understands how to get the most out of certain players in certain positions. So I think with Chiesa he's absolutely spot on. But if Chiesa's happy to be a rotation player at Liverpool, where even if his fitness is he gets his fitness going and he can start playing consistently, he can be what Shaqiri was at Liverpool, then that's fine. But that's not that depends on what kind of ambitions you have as a player. Chiesa wants to play, has always given off the impression that he wants to be amongst the best in the world and play and start with the best in the world. Well, he's not going to do that at Liverpool, because regardless of if Mohamed Salah stays or goes, Federico Chiesa at this point is not good enough to lead any attack for Liverpool. And I think that's not a controversial statement. I think his career the last 2.5 years is a testament to that, including the last 6 months at Liverpool.
Last question on Chiesa before we move on. Kwasi asks, can he play as a 10?
I wouldn't know. I mean, no, I don't think he can. I think he can, again, modern football today is very fluid in terms of positioning. I think, can he function centrally in an attack? Yes, he can function centrally in an attack. But again, I really think that if he's allowed to float free in a 2-man attack and play off of the wide players, play off of the lone striker up front, the more traditional number 9, I think that's when you get the most out of him, at least now after his ACL. But before the ACL, winger, traditional winger, beat his man, ambidextrous, good in the air, was like a heat-seeking missile when he went past players. You just couldn't stop him. He combined technique, power, pace, explosiveness, and he was just unstoppable. And I grew up watching his father play, and I thought that he could actually become even better than Enrico. But at this point, I have my doubts. I don't think he will reach Enrico's level even. But no, the talent was unbelievable. It's disappointing because Italy had so many players that have been ravaged by ACL injuries. I mean, Nicolo Zaniolo was another player who was a generational player. He had 2 ACLs, one in each knee. Then you have Scamacca, who was just about to explode. The Italians called him an Italian Ibrahimovic in the sense because he had this easy, big guy, very technical, could change games on his own. ACL. Giorgio Scalvini, ACL. Like, it's been so many ACLs on Italian players that Italy have believed in that it's really a shame. And of course, Federico Chiesa is probably the biggest name on that list.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely spot on. 3 years ago, I think it was 2022, maybe. Correct me if I'm wrong. I thought he was the Salah replacement. In my eyes, in my head, in my brain, I thought if I ever want a Salah replacement, it has to be Chiesa. He was just electric. Everything that you described, I echo those sentiments. But it's a brilliant segue, Bence, because the way Nema was talking about this winger, game changer, amazing quick dribbler, driver with the ball, it was almost like he's describing Kvara. Now, Bence, January opens up and we're thinking Liverpool need a centre-back because of the injury to Gomez and Kwanzaa's in different form, and he's a young player. We need a left-back. Same scenario with Robertson having so much mileage and so much energy over the years, and it sort of seems to be diminishing. But then Ornstein, and not no ordinary journalist, Ornstein gives us the news that Liverpool are interested, overlooking the situation of Kvara. When you heard this news, did it make sense to you?
It did. I think in some ways it does, because we spoke a little bit about the January transfer window, and we know clubs don't like to sell in the window, but sometimes they are forced to sell. With Diaz, with Hakpo, Porto, I think we're going through some financial difficulties and had to sell him. With Hakpo, I think PSV realised it was on the back of the World Cup. He was brilliant in the World Cup. This is the most amount of money we're going to get for him. His stock is at its highest. We just have to sell. As I think when you mentioned, yes, look, I do think Liverpool need a left back. I think Liverpool need a centre back. But those positions and those areas, I think the players that Liverpool want, their clubs don't necessarily want to lose them in this window because they have ambitions for the rest of the season, and it's difficult to get replacements in for them. So for me, we know Kvaratskhelia is well liked at Liverpool. There were links in the summer. I spoke to some Georgian sources even back then who were sort of murmuring, yes, Hughes really likes him, Edwards really likes him, and I can understand why. He's a brilliant player, and I think he'd really suit this slot system as well. Not just in terms of his ability, but his character as well. I've had the sort of privilege of talking to a lot of people who worked with him from the day that he arrived at Dinamo Tbilisi's academy. I wrote a whole chapter about Georgia and the academy he came from, and in that chapter I spoke to a lot of people about Kvaratskhelia in particular, about his sort of upbringing, how he made it to Italy ultimately. And the things that sort of stood out to me about him, one of the coaches that first worked with him at Dinamo Tbilisi worked with Lionel Messi at the La Masia Academy. And he was telling me Kvaratskhelia was probably a little bit similar to Messi in the way he was doing things at such a young age that he's doing now at an older age. So like he was basically just continuously taking his game to the next level again and again and again until we got to the senior level, and he was still making players look silly and beating players. Because it's one thing when you do that when you're 10 years old, but it's another when you can do that against adults.
In grown-ups,
So there was a lot of positive feedback about him. I spoke to, during the Euros in the summer, I interviewed a lot of his people during that time when he went to Dinamo Batumi just before Napoli, because obviously his contract sort of became void because of the Ukraine-Russia conflict around that time. So he went back to Georgia to play sort of 6 months there in the Georgian league. At the time, like his stock was already really, really high because he was so good in the Russian league. But that sort of 6 months for him was pivotal in terms of sort of helping him focus on his vision. Like, okay, I went to Russia, I proved myself there. The next step now is to go to Europe and prove myself in Europe. And some of the coaches who worked with him then were sort of speaking about his professionalism. Like, he would go to the training sessions in the morning, go home, have lunch, maybe have a bit of a nap, and go back in the evening to continue practicing, doing shooting drills and everything to really sort of get the maximum out of himself. And then when he wasn't doing that, he was staying behind for like sort of analytical video analysis sessions, analyzing his next opponents, seeing where their weaknesses are and how he can beat them. And also sort of analyzing his own game, seeing where his weaknesses are and how he can improve on those. I'm absolutely certain with the access that he has at Napoli, he's still doing all of those things. And that is also why he's so good. I think it's important to sort of recognize that like a player doesn't just become good because they're naturally gifted. Like there's so much work that goes on behind the scenes to make someone the way they are and make someone quality. Kvaratskhelia, when he's taking on someone like Trent Alexander-Arnold, he already knows all their weaknesses and he's got that in his mind and he knows what he's going to do. And that's why he's so good at dribbling, because he analyzes all of his opponents. So I think all of these things are really important and really encouraging about Kvaratskhelia as well, because not every player does that. But he is one of those sort of special talents who's really honed in and focused on what he wants to do. And I think... not sure about Napoli, but definitely in Georgia and in the Georgian clubs, he's seen as a massive leader. He's not necessarily very outspoken. He's sort of a bit of a quiet character, but when it comes to the dressing room and on the pitch, he leads by example and he is vocal when he needs to be as well.
Well, this is what we're going to ask Nema for. But before I do, Nema, my education in terms of a knowledge about Georgian football was only one player and one player only, and that was Georgi Kinkladze. Now, the young lads and lasses in the chat won't know who Georgi Kinkladze was. Ben's definitely won't. Ben's the young buck. But Georgi Kinkladze, people, if there was a YouTube clips of him, if there is YouTube clips of him, I don't even know if there's YouTube clips of him, but I know, Nema, you will know him because this is not sounding offensive, just
we're closer in age, yeah.
Yes, yeah. So yeah. You will remember.
I think Manchester City. I think Uwe Rösler. I think English football before it went completely globalized and it ruined it, if you ask me. But
Kinkladze was a wizard, as Ib says in the chat. I mean, Kinkladze was a wizard. I don't know if he was a hero to Kvara. But what I do know, Nema, and this is why I want to come to you, to be labeled Kvaradona in the land of Naples after the one and only Maradona says a lot of what the fans think of this guy. I need you to tell us this guy, background about him, and why is he nicknamed Kvaradona?
Well, I think we should go back to his Dinamo Tbilisi days. When he was 16 years old, he became a first-team player. Let's remember his pedigree as well. He's the son of Badri Kvaratskhelia, who's his father. He played for the Azerbaijani national team, even though they are Georgian and Georgian descent. It's neighboring countries. He was named top in 2018. I think he was named in Guardian's top 60 talents to look at. I remember him having watched him in November of 2021, I think it was, when Sweden, Zlatan Ibrahimovic had returned to the Swedish national team and formed a partnership with Alexander Isak, and they were just going to go to Georgia to beat Georgia, and they ended up losing 2-0 after a brace from Khvicha, who was electric that game, and essentially ended Ibrahimovic's national team career, because they didn't really go to the World Cup after that, and that kind of comeback, even though Ibrahimovic was named the best player of the Sweden's best player that year after fantastic results with Milan, that put an end to that kind of whole comeback thing. I then remember, him going to Russia. He was with Lokomotiv Moscow and he was on loan there. And I remember Yuri Semin reading how he was furious that they only had him on loan, because he ended up with Rubin Kazan signing a 5-year contract there. Then, of course, the war happened, and players in Russia were able to rescind their contracts.
Yeah.
And he returned, as Ben said, to Georgia, where, Cristiano Giuntoli, who's now the sporting director at Juve, was the sporting director at Napoli at the time.
Oh.
And he was, that summer that he built, it's the best transfer summer any Italian side has had since summer of 2009, that when Inter bought Lucio, Milito, Motta, Schneider, and Eto'o. Because in that summer, Napoli got Kim Min-jae, they got Khvicha Kvaratskhelia, they brought in every single player they needed to play Spalletti's football. And the way he exploded was just unbelievable. You could see it already during pre-season that summer, when he was just unplayable from minute one. He's very ambidextrous. He's very good he's both very good in the air, good crosser, fantastic shooter, wonderful technique. He's learnt, of course, because in Italy, teams really find you out very quickly and put you to your weakness. But he has improved and worked on his weaknesses. He can play much more centrally than he once could. But of course, last season everything imploded at Napoli, and they, the fact that Giuntoli left and went to Juve, De Laurentiis didn't replace him properly. By then they had lost out on their first number. They wanted Thiago Motta, but Thiago Motta didn't want to go there because De Laurentiis got too arrogant and was saying things like, "I don't need a sporting director, I'm here," and things like that, which is very typical of Aurelio De Laurentiis. Yeah, it's very, very, very vintage Aurelio De Laurentiis. And of course, they had a magical season, him and Osimhen. They were just unbelievable. And with Spalletti, they were able to play some of the most beautiful football. I mean, as Liverpool fans, I'm sure you want to forget that game when they completely destroyed Klopp's Liverpool at the Diego Maradona, 5-1, if I remember correctly. And they could have probably gone further if they hadn't, been, Spalletti struggled against Pioli in the quarterfinals of the Champions League, playing low blocks and counter-attacking. He's always struggled with that. But by then they'd already wrapped up the league. And he should have been, he was named the MVP of the Serie A. I think that's a little bit of a stretch. I think Osimhen that season was the MVP, but without a doubt, Khvicha was the under-21 star of that season. How they managed to give that to Fagioli at Juve is a miracle that only they themselves can answer. But that season, the best under-21 player in Europe was Kvicha Kvaratskhelia, and there's no doubt about it. And just as a kind of a little curious fact about his name, Khvicha in Megrelian, which is a dialect of Georgian in eastern Georgia, Khvicha means shine, to shine, shiny, and he is a shining diamond, even though he's the last year and a half has hardly been too impressive. But if we were to join Liverpool, you would be getting a potential superstar. There's no doubt about that.
Wow. That's quite a sort of introduction to. I mean, first Ben spoke about him and his upbringing and his childhood and sort of his mental capacity to learn. The more you were speaking about him, Ben, the more I was thinking. So obviously we're Premier League merchants on the main and the mine's gone. Brighton winger.
Mitoma.
As you was describing him in terms of his willingness to learn and study the science behind dribbling, behind football, Mitoma is very much like that. In the modern day and age, you have to be this, as you said, talent can only take you thus far. And the fact that is he 23? Do I believe? Is he only 23 still?
Yeah, 23.
He turns 24 on February 12th, so we're only a month away before his 24th birthday.
There you go. So to be talking about him on these levels, you have to say that the character and the personality. Ben was saying, what is he like actually amongst the team in terms of leadership? Nema, is he a quiet character? Does his talking on the pitch type player, isn't he?
Yeah, he's not an explosive character off the pitch at all. He got married recently, or I think it was 6 months ago, a year ago. He's very much a family guy. He doesn't make much fuss on the side of things. He's no Victor Osimhen, if we put it to you that way. There's not much not off the pitch drama with Khvicha, even though his agent at the time had a bit of a conflict with Osimhen, or rather Osimhen had a conflict with Kvara's agent, because Kvara's agent had made some remarks about how much money Kvara makes and his contract, which, to be fair, is neither Osimhen's fault nor Kvara's fault, but it's more the Aurelio De Laurentiis' fault, who doesn't understand how to handle these situations, and is not very good at that, and always needs to have. I mean, he's a great CEO, but he's an owner of a club. What he's done with Napoli is nothing short of fantastic. I mean, turning a profit every season, bringing them from virtual nothing, non-league football, all the way to winning the league and the Champions League quarterfinals, which is the greatest achievement they've ever had in that tournament. He needs to have a sporting director that can grease the wheels, because Aurelio De Laurentiis is a bull in a china shop. He is this kind of larger than life character who loves to create headlines and loves to, he's a movie director. He's a movie producer, not director, sorry. He's a movie producer. And he is bombastic. He is this kind of Berlusconi, Trump, he loves to
roll into one.
Yeah, he's like that. I mean, he has absolutely no filter. He doesn't know what diplomacy even is, let alone how to spell it. One agent I was speaking to through the years who was telling me about how he's got this mannerisms of working which was outdated already in 1965. Like he sent this agent a text saying, "This is the contract, this is the deal, take it or leave it," and he was like, "Yeah, we're gonna leave it." Like he's got this attitude about him. But look, he is a shrewd businessman. He has built something fantastic in Napoli, and to a lesser extent at Bari. He's built a big empire in terms of the movie business, and now he's kind of understood his mistakes, because now he had to bring in Antonio Conte, and he had to make a compromise for the first time ever. And the compromise, of course, was the way Conte is a system manager. He doesn't play the way that Napoli historically have always played. Conte is more about organization, and then the system, his calcio verticale. You play deep. They're a counter-attacking side, but they're a football playing side. He loves to saw his way through, long ball up to Lukaku, who plays off to someone else, and then systematically from left to right, from right to left. Right, his transition from a 3-5-2 to a 4-2-4. That's how he loves to play, or a 3-4-2-1 to a 4-2-4. That's how he loves to play. And that's not really the Napoli style, but they had to accept that. And Conte, Kvaratskhelia was the big question mark going into this season. Is he a system coach for Antonio Conte? I was very much on the fence, because you don't know, because I think in terms of Conte being a fantastic coach and a tactical genius, although very difficult to work with, he is a tactical genius, and Kvicha Kvaratskhelia is a fantastic talent. So yes, there were the possibility for them to work together and make it work was there, and it started pretty okay. I mean, I think he was named the MVP in September or October in the Serie A, but since then it's kind of died down and died out. And David Neres, who's been excellent recently, Napoli look at that and go, well, instead of having another clear house from the Scudetto years, we've already got rid of Kim Min-jae. Victor Osimhen is in Turkey. We're going to get rid of him. Maybe now's the time to cash in on Khvicha Kvaratskhelia as well and completely start over. We'll have to wait and see, but 80 million euros is the asking price, and it's a lot of money.
We've had some brilliant insights so far. There's 500 of you guys in here. We absolutely appreciate and love the support. As I said, make sure you're checking out Nema's podcast and his shows and his content. That just the name of his YouTube channel is in the description, and of course, most of you will be following Ben. If you haven't, wake up and follow Ben as well. He's doing amazing work. We've had some brilliant insight, but I think none of your insights compares with Daz's. Daz's helps me on my calling show on Saturday nights. He says Kvaratskhelia just scored 4 goals on my FM game. Last goal was a lovely dink over the keeper. Man of the match, 10 out of 10. So there you go, guys. All that insight and knowledge that you passed on, Daz has overlapped it. But listen, Benz, finally, I want to come to you. The way he's described, the way Nema described in terms of, a system, Conte is just, we know he's a system merchant. Tactically, it's all about tactics, strict player movement. You move when he tells you to move, basically. But Slot, we've seen, is slightly different. He's all about sort of control, attacking football. Now, with our current strike force, and it's good you raised some doubts about them, because I have the same doubts. I think Darwiun Nunez was another experiment that I admit has failed. I'm not prepared to, me, big Grizz Khan, I'm not prepared to give him any more time. Right? He's really scared. Right? I'm sure he's really scared. But I think his Liverpool career will come to an end in the summer. That leaves us a number 9 short. Luis Diaz's contractual situation could become problematic if we don't offer him another one, because he'll have 2 years left this summer. Same with Diogo Jota. One of them may be sacrificed along with Nunez. Suddenly, there could be a bit of a revamp in our attack. Kvaratskhelia is linked, and I get that, and you get that. But there's also another ex-Napoli forward and striker, and Nema spoke about him very, very highly as well. Victor Osimhen, who I believe, Nema, has he also got a release clause?
Oh my God, where do we begin with Victor Osimhen? We're talking about a striker who, I think he's got the world record for the highest leap in the air, when we even beat Cristiano Ronaldo's majestic leap for Juventus against Sampdoria. He is unbelievable. He's got this ability to, almost standing still, jump straight up in the air like an arrow.
Michael Jordan, how he used to hang.
Yeah, it really is. He really is. His movement is unbelievable. He's an absolute, one of the most amazing goals I've seen him score was when that season they won the Scudetto, the Serie A, away against Roma, and Chris Smalling was unbelievable that season. He didn't even make a full-on mistake. He made half a mistake. And from like a Van Basten 1988 angle, Osimhen whips it into that. Like there's only few people in the world that can score that ever in their careers. His talent is unbelievable. There have been issues fitness-wise, but above all, his mentality and his attitude. He has literally no self-control on social media. When he went to war with and I mean war with Kvaratskhelia agent, calling him a clown, keep my name out of your mouth. He basically went Will Smith on Chris Rock on him on Instagram. We've seen him do similar things like that when he attacks someone in Nigeria, whether it's the Nigerian national team coach, and his actual family and friends take the phone physically away from him on Instagram Live and say, "Stop it, Victor." We saw during COVID, when he was in Nigeria, celebrating his birthday while the world was in lockdown, throwing dollar bills at girls and then got COVID. I mean, there's been lots of nonsense from him through the years. But what we're talking about in terms of the ability on the pitch, he's a complete striker. When he was at his best at Napoli, I'm the opinion, I think he was the best striker in the world. And he's such a complete striker. He's so mobile. He's so good at linking up. He's so good at passing. He's so good aerially. He's very technical, finished with both feet. And I think, again, his leap is just, there's nothing like it. But of course, there is a release clause. Napoli's not going to get anything like that. And the only reason why he's not already in the Premier League is because all of this nonsense that I've already spoken about, because there's no doubt that the Premier League has always been his target. That's where he wants to go. But clubs don't want to spend that kind of money and have to deal with an explosive character who can go fly off the handle at any moment.
Ben, I think Nema's basically answered our question, because stylistically he's describing, would you say, what we wanted and anticipated Darwiun Nunez to be? It just hasn't worked out though, has it?
Yeah, exactly. And listen, I am a huge fan of Nunez.
I know you are.
On and off the pitch, I like him, and I think there is another universe where this transfer could have worked out really well. I think what's really clear is he's such a confidence player, and I think that maybe wasn't as obvious to us when he came to sort of Liverpool. I know I spoke to a few of his sort of coaches from here and there in Spain, and they did say he was someone who really had to feel the trust of the manager and the coach. Yeah. I think the scrutiny of the Premier League, the amount of attention that's been on him, I don't think mentally sort of he's got that character to live up to that. Osimhen, on the other hand, and I know, Nema, what he's saying, there's a lot of negatives there, but at least in terms
he'd embrace it almost, right? I think you're going towards that angle, aren't you? That he'd embrace it, it would be his stage.
No, he doesn't seem to be lacking in confidence. And I went to Naples in 2023 when they won the Scudetto, and just to see how loved he was in Naples. Like, people were wearing the Osimhen mask everywhere where I was going. It was insane how obsessed and how much he was loved. So I think, in some sense, I know Michael Edwards has been a huge fan of him from his sort of Belgium days when he was playing in Belgium. Liverpool wanted to get him when he went to Lille. I'm pretty sure Napoli had to lock him up in a hotel room to prevent him from Jurgen Klopp.
We absolutely wanted him from Lille. But Napoli, we weren't prepared to pay that kind of money at that time. Napoli took out a loan or something, wasn't it? Something, Nema? They took out finance to secure that deal. I know Liverpool were very interested. And this is why the link has come back again, because Edwards has come back. And obviously that database is still warm, it seems. But we have got this policy though, Ben, because we have got this policy at Liverpool where it's no dickhead policy, you know? And I'm going to be blunt.
The thing is, he's not a dickhead per se. He's just a volatile character.
Okay.
I think what Spalletti managed to do, I think that was the thing that I found probably the most impressive that season, was how Spalletti managed. I think it was Spalletti's second season at Napoli, or third, and it was Osimhen's third or fourth season there. And there'd already been these rumblings, but the talent was there to see. But Spalletti managed to get this side to work together, to put everything together, and especially he managed to get inside of Victor Osimhen's head and control him and get him to express all of that on the pitch. And he knew exactly how to train him, he knew exactly how to keep him fit, he knew all of those things. And that's why they won in such a convincing fashion, playing some of the most beautiful football that I think I've ever seen this side of the millennium in the Serie A, if I'm perfectly honest with you. That, Spalletti's Napoli that season, the 4-2-3-1, 4-3-3 shift, how they all, the fluidity of the positions between Kvara and Osimhen, especially Lobotka in the deep lying central midfield, Zelinski. I mean, it was truly truly, truly marvelous to watch. And a lot of players overperformed, like Politano and so on. So, no, if you have the right coach that can get inside his head, the talent is unbelievable. And if they can coach him properly, not just physically, tactically, but also kind of let him be Osimhen, but also keep him on the plantation, if you mean, on the reservation, so he doesn't go off on one and starts, barely, has an unbelievable rant against his teammates in the middle of the season for no reason whatsoever. You need to have the right leadership there. You need to have the right coach to keep him kind of free but locked up.
Ben, in terms of profile wise, then what would you do then this summer? Let's talk about this window, because profile wise, opportunistic wise, Kvara makes the most sense, right? In terms of the price, in terms of finally De Laurentiis is willing to let him go, and all of that, because that's the biggest task anyone has out of Napoli, trying to get players out of there. He just has no one's buying my players policy, and if he has that, you can't do nothing about it. But profile-wise, it seems like Osimhen type of striker is more needed at Liverpool, would you say? How would you go about it strategically?
I would say so. I mean, if we're looking at it, I like Diego Jota, but he's very injury prone. He's sort of struggling to stay fit. Obviously, Nunez is such a volatile character. We just don't really know what to expect when he is on the pitch these days. So yes, I do think a number 9 should be the priority for Liverpool. And listen, if there is an opportunity to get Kvaratskhelia, we know in the summer there's going to be an opportunity to get Osimhen. And maybe I am crazy, but in spite of everything Nema has said, if there is a universe where Liverpool can reunite that too at Anfield, I mean, this duo got 108 goal contributions in 2 seasons together while they were playing for Napoli. That's pretty insane numbers. And I think they were pretty good in terms of their partnership. I was looking at the data, and in terms of joint goal contributions, both of them are at the top in terms of their teammates. Both had 15 joint goal contributions, and that's the highest out of any of their other teammates that they had with. So they have that connection, that partnership. I think Osimhen's release clause is 75 million euros. As Nema said, there's no way anyone's going to pay that.
Ben, both and Nema, both these guys, rewind 10 months, 12 months, they're both £100 million plus.
Yeah. But I think there's suggestions now that Osimhen could go for 60 million euros, which is £50 million. And at that price, the quality of that player, that is a bargain deal.
If I could just say, I agree with, but like in terms of the quality on the pitch, those two together reunited at Liverpool would be unbelievable. There's no doubt about that. I don't think anyone questions that. I would be far more positive to this if Jurgen Klopp was still at Liverpool, because of the character that Jurgen Klopp is, more than how he can run a dressing room. Slot is not that kind of a character, and I'm afraid that someone as volatile as Victor Osimhen would, if that would work. Those are the only doubts I have. If Klopp was there, I'd say go for it. And it would be an instant hit. Those two together for Liverpool, you could phase out the Salah era and you wouldn't even notice it, to be honest. But I just wonder if it's a bit of a risk, and it's a risk that Liverpool together with Slot have to sit down and knowingly know what they're doing. But there's also something on the other hand. Then you could say Victor knows why he's in Turkey right now. He also knows that this is because of other things. Some of it is his fault, and he will turn up to that move, whether it's Liverpool or Arsenal, whoever it is,
mentally
with a point to prove. He wants to take revenge and show who is Victor Osimhen. Who am I? The real Victor Osimhen. So there is that aspect of it too. But footballing-wise, not up for discussion.
I also think let's not underestimate Slot as well, because so far he's handled the big characters quite well at Liverpool. He's done a great job at that, and that was kind of the feedback that I got when I sort of spoke to his colleagues and the players that worked with him at Feyenoord and his previous clubs. I know initially when he arrived, everyone was comparing him to Erik ten Hag. Those were the comparisons, and I think one of his colleagues said, kind of off the record to me, was no, like Erik ten Hag doesn't have the balls. Slot has the balls, and he can handle big characters, whereas Ten Hag couldn't do that at Manchester United. So yes, he's not as bubbly, as sort of how would I say, charismatic as Jurgen Klopp in the press conferences, but I think away from the cameras, he's still very good at handling those characters. So let's not underestimate him in that regard. I think it's just more of like there's a bigger question mark because he's only been at Liverpool 6 months. He's only handled big characters when
the body of work,
things have gone smoothly. So obviously we don't know that there is that uncertainty around him. So I get that, but everything so far and everything from his previous track record would suggest he would be okay.
A couple of super chats. Thank you very much for Podghost podcast. If you haven't subscribed and followed, make sure you do. Creating great content over there as well. Interviews with the biggest stars and celebrities and media influencers. Make sure you go and check him out. He says, big up Grizz, great host and actually enjoying this live stream. Thank you very much. That's very nice and very kind of you. And Hussein says, did we miss out? Thank you for the generous super chat. So he says, did we miss out by not signing Marmoush? I'll stick with you, Ben, especially with him being linked to City. You never walk alone. Marmoush, again, another... Okay, I'll let you describe Marmoush, because some say he's a wide forward, some say he's a false nine, some say he's more suited to playing as a nine. And Nema, you can fill us in as well with your insight if you have any on him as well. But sticking with you, Ben, Marmoush, he's been strongly linked. Looks like he's very close to signing for City. Have we missed out?
I think so. I mean, I was sort of aware of his names, but the first time he really stood out to me was 2023 AFCON, when Salah was kind of struggling, but Marmoush was sort of standing out for Egypt.
That's
and
right.
What stood out to me straight away, and I even did a post about him, you can check on Twitter. I did a post about the amount of duels he won and he was involved with. He was so energetic. And I was looking at him in that game, having not known much about him, having not seen him a lot. And I was thinking, oh my God, this is an attacker for Liverpool. The way he was running about, the way he was pressing, the amount of duels he was winning, just the energy. I was thinking, wow, this is a player who could suit Jurgen Klopp's system, because Jurgen Klopp was in charge at the time. And obviously since then he's completely exploded. And I'm still in that mindset that he would be a great addition to Liverpool. I think from Liverpool's perspective, it's maybe the fact that he is, I think, almost the same age as Osimhen. But this is kind of only his first real big season, that he doesn't have that massive sample size that Osimhen has, for example. Osimhen dominated in France, he dominated in Italy, and he's dominating in Turkey as well. Whereas with Marmoush, we only have this amazing season to go by. Last season, he was decent and he was quite good. But this is the first season when he's really exploded. So I guess he has that question mark. And again, I think the transfer fee is around 80 million euros or pounds. I can't remember, but it's a huge sum to pay for someone who could just be having a purple patch, although I don't necessarily agree with that. Unfortunately, I think if City do get him, they get a game-changing player for them.
Well, every football journalist I spoke to last summer and going into this season who covers the Bundesliga was saying, watch out for Marmoush, this is his season. Every single one that I spoke to that covers the Bundesliga said, this season is Marmoush's season, watch out for him, everyone's going to talk about him. As someone who doesn't watch the Bundesliga as religiously, and my German relatives will hate me saying that, but there's only that many hours in the day, and I prefer to spend it watching Serie A, Serie B, and even Serie C, and to some extent Serie D, because Italian football is my home. But when I've seen him, I think Ben said it best. I think the fluidity, the pressing, the intensity, he can play in so many positions, and he's so fluid, and he links up so well with many other players. I think he would work really well in a system, in a Liverpool system. But like you said, I think if we're just talking football, I wouldn't, like, between him and Osimhen. Osimhen's more of a safe bet in terms of quality on the pitch, because he's done it for a longer period of time, and he's done it, winning trophies and scoring that many goals with Napoli and Lille, and he hasn't played for the big three in Italy. He hasn't played for PSG in France, but he's delivered at those clubs. Look, if you win the Serie A, if you're the Serie A MVP playing for a club outside of Inter, Milan, and Juve, that is a huge accomplishment, because that is just that's unheard of, because of the difference in finances and structure that the three northern striped clubs have in their advantage compared to everyone else in Italy. And he was the MVP. He should have been the MVP. It was given to Kvara, but he was the best player that year in the Serie A, and it wasn't even close. And as well as being top goal scorer, he was truly, truly unbelievable. And I think if you can unlock him, you have an unbelievable talent on your hand. And if you can manage to get him and Kvara together, well, the cop will be flying.
It will be indeed. Look, where are we now? I'm gonna let's round it up now in terms of this Kvara situation, guys. By the way, thank you. Insightful, interesting analysis, discussion. Smash up the likes, people. Still 500 of you guys in here. Amazing support throughout the show. We're coming up to an hour. We're going to round it up now. So like, subscribe if you haven't already, and we really appreciate the support and love you've shown us tonight. And make sure you're checking out these guys. As I said, I will repeat again and again and again, because they are so good. Ita Foot Pod, make sure you're checking out their YouTube channel. Subscribe, like. If you've enjoyed Nema's discussion insight, I've thoroughly been enjoying everything he's been saying. So go and check out more of his content. And of course, Ben Bosak, make sure you're checking him out on Twitter and all the great work he's doing as well. We know Napoli are willing to sell, and this is both of you. We want a final answer, opinion, verdict, prediction. We know Liverpool have shown an interest, because Ornstein and Joyce, when they speak, you listen. And so they've said Liverpool are monitoring the situation very closely, and if an opportunity arises. Now, we were led to believe, Ben, that PSG were in negotiation with them. Today, 2 or 3 French reliable journalists, and I'm sure you guys will back them up, Fabrice Hawkins, for example, wonderful French journalist, has come out and said that PSG have certain limitations in terms of how much they are willing or can spend on Osimhen. And that is around, wait for it, guys, the 50 million euros mark. And if that's and they also report tonight that they are also in talks with Duran from Villa, and they've made it very clear that it's one or the other, which suggests that it's not a foregone conclusion. Ben, do you anticipate, and would you like Liverpool to be a bit more forceful, like when Man United came in for Gakpo and we overtook them, and like Spurs came in for Diaz and we overtook them? Is this a similar scenario building up in your eyes?
I think so. That it is a little bit more complicated. I think Liverpool have more financial muscle. It's strange to say than PSG when it comes to financial fair play, because they didn't splurge in the summer. They didn't go out to buy Martin Zubimendi. So they do have more sort of things to play with when it comes to money to play with, when it comes to financial fair play. And that could be an advantage. But I think they'll also look at it from a squad point of view, and that would mean Liverpool going into the rest of the season with 3 wingers. So I think that there is a world where right now they're sort of playing their cards. Who can we get rid of? Because, as we mentioned, there is the question of Luis Diaz. He has interest from elsewhere. Darwin Nunez also has interest from elsewhere. These are players who didn't necessarily have a lot of interest in them in this January window, but there are clubs looking at them in terms of a summer transfer. So now I think Liverpool will first consider, can we get rid of one of them? What can we get a club to sort of buy and accelerate their move? Similarly, how Liverpool are accelerating their move for Kvaratskhelia. And I think that's why this is going to play out a little bit longer. But Liverpool know they have time because PSG can't afford Kvaratskhelia. I don't know if they can sell a lot of their assets as well. I mean, there's been a few links, I think, when it comes to...
They're trying to throw in Asensio in quite a few deals. Yeah.
But it is tricky for them as well. These financial fair play rules and PSR as well in the Premier League have made things a lot more difficult for clubs to just go out and spend. So I think Liverpool know they have a bit of time, a bit of advantage. This is not going to be a transfer like the Szoboszlai one, when there was a 24-hour deadline to get the release clause. I think the fact that Ornstein and Joyce reported on it means there's more going on in the background than what they are saying. Clearly, Kvaratskhelia is a game-changing player. We discussed that already. Liverpool really like him. I think it would be a really suit the system. And I think it's encouraging that Liverpool are taking a look at it and do see that as an opportunity to sort of make a move. For me, I think it's a no-brainer. I think Liverpool will try to do something. Whether it will succeed, whether it will happen, I don't know. I think it's too early at this stage. There are a few dominoes at play, so it's hard to see whether all those dominoes will fall. But I hope so. I really hope that it does happen. I think it would be a great transfer.
Nema, your thoughts on the scenario and situation you envisage in the next week or so, maybe possibly?
I mean, if I want to say I don't support any club in England. I have weak spots for certain clubs. I have a weak spot for West Ham and I have a weak spot for Liverpool because, of course, when I went to England, the school I attended, the English school here in Gothenburg, Glenn Hussein, who won the league with Liverpool, his kid went to my school. I used to play football with him when I was a child, so I do have a soft spot for such. So I don't support anyone. No, I don't support anyone. But if I were to wear my Liverpool glasses and if I were to look at the project of where Liverpool is post Jurgen Klopp, where they are with Slot, there are three players who I would probably go and sign. I'd sign Osimhen, I'd sign Kvara, and I'd sign Ederson from Atalanta for the midfield. Those are the three players I would bring in, because if you bring them in and give them the age category and whether you can get 5-6 years at least out of them at the top level, and you wouldn't have to worry about, that's a very strong line that you can depend upon. The way that Liverpool have done business these last few years when being able to win trophies has been identifying important first team players and then holding on to them, keeping them happy, winning trophies, which is obviously the most important thing to keep the top players happy, but getting those key appointments and signings right, from Salah to Mane to Firmino to Alisson Becker and so on and so forth. So those are the three I would sign for this Arne Slot system in order to rejuvenate and continue this Liverpool 2.0 post Klopp. Those three are the ones I would go after. They would cost a lot. It would probably hinder you in other areas. But then again, you also have players you can sell to make it, worthwhile.
I think it's surprisingly, we could be in for a surprise in terms of a bit of a rebuild, a reshuffle in our attack, because numbers-wise, it's stacked, as I said. But the way we've kind of broke it down, and Ben broke it down better than I could, but there is slight doubts in a couple of them at the very least. Salah with the contract situation, which I expect to be resolved. And it's almost like Gakpo's the most nailed-on, safest forward. And you rewind 12 months and you couldn't have dreamt of saying that. People would have called you crazy if you said Gakpo's the safest forward at Liverpool Football Club. But we fast forward 12 months, and so things can change. I wanted to ask before we end very quickly. There was a question about the midfield of Torino, Samuel Ricci.
Well, you're talking about a player who I've been in love with since he played for Empoli as a 17, 18-year-old.
See, we have good taste. We share the good.
Yeah, look, no, I have to say no to that because I don't want any more Italian players leaving Serie A.
That's different.
Samuele Ricci
You tried
needs
to
to
flog
stay in
Edison
Italy.
to us, right? I want Samuele Ricci.
Yeah. No, listen, Samuele Ricci, Sandro Tonali, Nicolo Barella, that's Italy's midfield going into the World Cup. And it's a midfield that is complete. It has everything. It has power, it has pace, it has technique, it has shooting, it has crossing, it has intelligence, it has creativity, it has tactical understanding. Those three are the three that are going to lead Italy moving forwards, the national team.
Okay.
And I want Ricci, and I want Tonali to come back from Newcastle, and I want Ricci to stay in Italy. But yes, he's a fantastic player. I remember watching him as a 17, 18-year-old already in Empoli. You knew there was something there. There was something special there, and he is truly, truly a special player.
People in the chat, don't start him off. We've realized he's very, very defensive and he doesn't want any.
No, Bastoni, I'm sorry, like Bastoni's not leaving Italy. He's made that very clear.
I mean, after Van Dijk, the best centre back in the world.
No, he's unbelievable, and the fact that he's also improved defensively as much as he has these last 15 months. I mean, going forward, we always knew how good he was, but defensively, he's improved vastly, incredibly, and he's not too old either. No, I think Bastoni and Barella are the kind of players I think they're going to stay well into the 30s at Inter. I don't see them leaving, unless there's some sort of a crisis or something. But no, but look, Samuele Ricci is a fantastic player. I mean, you'd be, City have been linked with him, lots of clubs have been linked with him, but I want my Azzurri players to stay in Serie A.
Fair enough. Giovanni says, great discussion. Hope all is well for you and your families. What a lovely final message to leave on. Exactly. Thank you. We are very well. And that's it, people. Hope you've enjoyed our discussion, our chat, our analysis of the situation we find ourselves in, the talk about Osimhen and Kvaratskhelia. Doubts about Liverpool's forward line. Maybe there's a reshuffle. And this is just the first week of January. And there's a whole 3 weeks left yet. We will see more discussions. We will have more chats. And if I'm lucky enough, I will have these amazing guests to talk all things football again with us. Nema, final thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed it. Really appreciate you coming on.
Pleasure to be on. Thank you so much for inviting me. I really enjoyed it.
Brilliant. And of course, Bence, we will catch up again on social media, Twitter as well. And again, as usual, fantastic insight. Thank you as well.
A pleasure as always.
Guys, this has been the first episode of Transfer Khanage. Let's hope there's 1 or 2 every week, because that will mean Liverpool are active in the market. And that's what we want. Fingers crossed from the Liverpool fans. We actually have a quarter of a Liverpool fan in Nema as well, because he is connected somewhere, somehow. He's admitted to us. So we will take that. But guys, thank you very much. Hope you've liked. Hope you've subscribed. Follow the guys, as I said. And until the next episode of Football Khanage, peace, love, and tranquility to all. Take care.